On a typical Sunday afternoon, A&E have to treat victims of all sorts of sports. Football, rugby, and of course, that beloved British pastime, boozing.
My name's Don, one of the staff nurses.
But Ben here hasn't come in with your typical drunken injury. His symptoms are far worse than a hangover. He's had a blinding headache for 7 days, and there's a real chance he's been walking around all week with a fractured skull.
Can you tell me where you are today?
I'm in Norwich.
What day of the week is it?
That's Sunday.
Been out much over the weekend?
Yeah, a little bit last night, yeah.
Okay.
Last weekend, Ben was heading home after a night on the beers with some mates. Boys being boys, one of them challenged Ben to a manly trial of strength. He accepted, and the two boys began to wrestle. However, next thing he knew, his friend had performed a nifty pile-driver manoeuvre, bringing Ben down head first onto a parked car. And 1 week later, Ben made an interesting discovery.
Yesterday, I was in the pub, funnily enough, and I was scratching my head, and my finger kind of disappeared, and I thought, that felt weird, and I found this hole that you can sort of fit that much of your fingertip in.
That's pretty bad to have a hole in your head. You don't want that. Not good. Not good at all. But obviously he's here and get him taken care of, hopefully.
7 days with a dent in his skull, and he still didn't let it stop him going down the boozer.
I wouldn't say party animal. He's a machine. A party machine is what I north they call it.
But for the doctors, this is no laughing matter.
Having a feel around his head, he did have a 1 centimetre diameter dent in the right side of his head. So we worry about what's called a depressed skull fracture, which is where a segment of bone, rather than just cracking, is pushed as a fragment down towards the brain.
Ben's beginning to realise just how serious the consequences of his drunken night out could be, and the nerves are beginning to show.
I defy any man not to be worried about having a hole in the back of his head.
Ben is taken for a CT scan of his brain. If fragments of bone are pushing into Ben's head, they could cause internal bleeding or even epilepsy.
How are you doing?
With the scans over, it's time for the doctor to review the results. And thankfully, it's good news.
There are no signs of any skull fractures or depressed fractures which we were suspicious about in the area. So essentially a normal scan and a good outcome.
I'm very, very relieved that I don't have to have holes drilled in my head or any sort of plate work put in.
Bizarrely, however, the dent didn't show up on the scan either.
I am a medical anomaly because you can feel the hole in my head, you just can't see it.
Actually, Ben, you're not. Because the doctors worked out the hole was due to his flesh being deformed by the impact and not his skull.
A bloke can have a brain, he may be a medical anomaly, but what he was feeling was actually soft tissue swelling with a dent in it rather than anything bony or more significant. And as I say, he's a lucky man.
So Ben and Stetson are free to leave hospital. And no prizes for guessing where they're headed.
Let's go get some beer.
They might be better off sticking to halves and maybe moving on to shandy. And they're hardly the only ones, because alcohol is responsible for 1/3 of all admissions to A&E. After midnight, a massive 70% of cases are drink-related,